Hello world, Nai Coach here. So this is an extra vlog this week. My spirits are trying to get me to be able to do more vlogging, and I'm getting closer and closer to Data Bedrock, and that means that I am freeing up certain abilities in myself, and so it's good to start, get your legs a little bit. So here I'm going to be talking about a question that Alcides asked, and it's a good question, but I think there may be more to it that even he himself realized when he posed the question. All right, here it is. I'm watching some of Ademus's old videos on Zenai as well as reading his old posts. I have to say I find him very clear in breaking down and explaining things in a concise way that I admire. It is something I like in certain academics too, whom I guess were also Zaini. No offense to you, Coach, but I think Ademus is often clearer in some of his explanations than you, maybe due to his Zai over Ji. Although sometimes I do find his tone a bit abrasive, which I find less in you. All right. I'm going to, this actually will play into the topic. I'm just going to kind of go a bit off the cuff here, although I've written some things down, but in no particular order. And there's a reason for that, and I'll explain as we go. Okay, so to do this, this may be a bit longer because I'm going to be speaking a bit more naturally for me, where I do not have the sequential ideal order before I speak. Being a Ji mojo and having Nai over Ji, I have thoughts that need to come out, and they need to come out as they feel like coming out, and then I can Zai them to see if they're where they're supposed to be, if there should be some editing and things of that nature. All right, and that's something that I do with my Zai, is I will think it up, put it on paper, and do a first run off camera. First run, second run, off camera, and then I will Zai it, and I will get a better idea of what the ordering of things should be. But there's a cost with that. A cost in a kind of clarity. And he was asking about clarity, so when he asked me if I'm offended, no, I'm not offended because I think he meant no ill will, and I think Ademus is awesome. I think Zaini in general are awesome. I am a Naiji that appreciates Zaini quite a bit. I've spent a lot of time with cool hobbies with them, so I have a lot of fond memories in bonding with them, and also being impressed, as you are, with their abilities. So that's fine, and you can't be the best at everything, so that would be a silly ego for me to have. However, I think there is some things that need to be addressed to be fully authentic and to be a more holistic canvassing of it. Because the word clearer is vague. And that's because words, they can help get you on the green a bit, but they are not the terrain. They're not even maps, and we'll talk about that later. They are words that help explain a map. And the map sketches out what the data is. All right. So as far as being clear, so first I'm not offended, but next, do I agree with the sentiment? Yes and no, because it depends on what kind of clarity we're talking about. There is a particular kind of clarity that Ademus is doing, and I would say that he is definitely better at that than I am. He is a Zaini that has better gifts in that regard, and he's a very strong Zaini. So that would only make sense. However, often clear in some of his explanations. Okay, that's a logical statement. Alcides asked the question. That's a logical statement, and it can be true or false based on what we're speaking about. Because explanations, what form are we talking about? And then what is the criteria you are using to say what is clear or not clear? All right. So I'll start off with words are tricky, as we've mentioned, because of the relation to actual phenomenon that you're trying to give something that you can use in your head to explain it in a textual sense, a structured kind of linguistics. And that's important, but that's not the only way it works. So every power, like we talk about Nai is in all humans. It's either momentum or modulation. It is either first, second, third, or fourth place in your overall energetic hierarchy, and it is either conscious or unconscious, but it is everywhere. Same thing with certain noble characteristics, like being a clear expressor, being able to express yourself or an idea clearly. that's something that all the humans are doing. And they do it in different ways. So let's kind of break that down a little bit. Okay, so there is the first clarity, which for me, or not for me, but it relates to me, that goes along more with first wave. And that has to do with being clear on what I'm seeing. So that's my primary clarity. And then next is being able to clearly understand what I am seeing or visioning, and then to be able to clearly express it to a small elite original core that will then help expand out to the tribe. But for my specialization, my form of clarity, that's its primary purpose for me. It's a modulation power, and so it's modulating this arc, my Naiji arc. First is, what am I looking at? Next, what does that mean? Next, how do I get that across to other people? Okay, so one thing is that, take for example, Ademus's way of explaining, and I guess you're talking about his written explanations and also his video explanations, but we're talking about language, right? Words, either spoken words or written words. So, first of all, there's going to be certain kinds of clarity that are more appealing to other people. So being a Zai-Ni clarity is a kind of clarity, a variety of clarity that is particularly appealing and useful and inspirational for you. It helps get through the clutter. Now, that's something that the Zai-Ni particularly offers the Zenai, and then the whole tribe also benefits from the Zai-Ni form of clarity when done well. That's something that everyone in the tribe can benefit at some point when they're doing it. So same thing with the Naiji. There is the fact that to a Nijai, the way I express things, the circuitous way, the toned way, I don't actually know where I'm going until I get there, but I know I'm on the trail and I'm on it. See, all that I just did there, that's a form of expression too. To a Nijai, for example, that's particularly interesting because they want to know what is the new truth and how do you track it? And is it real? Can it be done? Yeah. If the Nai is right, then yes, I'm on the trail and you are actually watching the first bloodhound, the first tracker of this, the first climber of this mountain. I'm making this trail. So the first clarity is the first trail. That won't be as clear as that trail if I come back and forth with myself or other people. I will Zai it each time. It'll become smoother, it'll become more concise and so on. But still, that's not to say that's the best way that could be done, or there aren't other trails up. But there is first trail, and Naiji and Nai Alpha in general. When it comes to ideas in culture and just in ideas in general, whether it be technical, that's the thing you're going for, and there's a scent. There's a scent that you're tracking, and so there needs to be clarity for yourself that you're actually getting the scent, the signal you think you are, and you're staying on it and pointing it out to other people. So the Naiji form of clarity actually doesn't even require words, although I have words because of Ji, even stronger as far as momentum. But there is the issue of trying to point out for a person who's not seen it yet. There. No. There. Okay, and what I just did there, I just said the word there, but I was teaching very clearly. There's many clear things about it. Number one, you need to pay attention. I didn't say that, but I communicated that. I expressed that. And for a logic-based mojo, maybe at first that may be a bit heated or a bit toned. You may like it cooler, cleaner, more concise. And that has benefits in understanding it in that way. But the way I'm particularly gifted at is clarity of personal purpose, personal meaning and personal purpose. And so that invective I give is an extra data stream, and it's important. It may overwhelm you at first. It may be considered extraneous to you at first because my storyline is not directly yours or right next to it. It's fairly close, but it's not yours or right next to it. So that's understandable. However, when asking what is clearer it depends on for what task. So there is clarity of writing a forum post, very important, writing a book, writing or going on video and giving like an educational thing, to sort of make sense of the idea, to have it have a logical elegance and balance to it that gives sign, because often nature works that way. When things are correct, you'll feel that. And so Xi is very good at that. Xi Ni are really good at that, particularly, say, as compared to Xi Vi, with ideas and linguistics. They're very strong on that. All right. But there is a clarity of purpose, of personal purpose, that you'll need to do to mojo read correctly. In fact, to even see the phenomenon at all to start with, you're going to have to put your personal setting, your being, your spirit, you're going to have that where it needs to be. And I am communicating that clearly. Everything I just did there was essential. You can say things lots of ways, and there is getting it, and then there is getting it. Like there's intellectually getting it, which is very important. But there's also like spiritually getting it. This is non-optional. This is non-negotiable. You know this because you can look in my eyes, you can hear my voice. You've seen other humans and you know how they act when they actually are onto something. I'm a human who is actually on a trail. So I have clarity of staying on that trail, but also the way I conduct myself and the way I speak. Like right now, I'm kind of doing more story, I'm jumping around. Is it the most efficient way to go through these things? In a technical sense, no. In a personal sense, and in a you have it. Your Nai has picked up on this. This is no longer hidden. It is on your Nai radar. It's a thing. Okay, there's a certain clarity of motif. Okay, Xi does allow personal motifs, Nai with meaning, and so I'm conveying to you, like a method actor, the kind of character, the kind of being you'll need to be in order to handle this task. And so everything I've said so far is not meandering, and it's not out of sequence. I'm persuading. And there is a clarity of persuasion, but it may, to a logic-based mojo, it may seem like it's excessive or off. And I can understand that you may feel like, oh, I don't want to be moved that way at first, or not someone I trust. So with me, I think you're learning to trust me, and that I'm trying to do good stuff, and I have a high quality of work and work ethic. But always, you have to keep your independence of mind, and you're not the same mojo I am, the same storyline that I am. And so it's okay that if you want to learn something in that language first. However, there is more meaning to mojo than any one person or one mojo design could actually capture. So if you want to understand, for example, Nai or Xi or any power like that, totally, really know it, you have to study in all 16 designs and all 32 gender mojos, because that's what Xi does. It's easy to see Xi with a Xi alpha and then work from there. And you learn a lot about Xi from Xi source mojos. But to really get it, you'll have to see, because as far as nature is concerned, evolution is concerned, it's the species that's doing this. Each individual is holding a part of what the species is doing. All right. Which is why language is so tricky, and trying to give any specific quality to anyone is challenging. It is what it is, and then you can see what it is, and then you can try and figure it out in your head, and somewhere in that process you'll want to put it into language. So language is probably like the fourth or fifth down in the process of getting it and acting on it. Getting it better, doing something with what you've gained. So yeah, I think kind of covers that. Just that there's a clarity really that Xi Vi have, or Xi Vi had better than Zenez. Because when you talk about making mojo do what it does, even the wonderful clarity of ideas and language that Ademus has, and Mitchell's also very strong in that as well, there is still going to be the other aspects of how it's enacted. So Xi Vi, there is a clarity in, I know I have Xi Vi as a compound, so I really understand this one. do it like this. That's how you do the tennis thing. I don't do tennis, but I've talked to tennis people and I like them, just like surfers and climbers and other things. It's solo sports. I don't do them, but I like talking philosophical shop with them. Anyway, long story short, is when you explain how you make the tennis racket do the perfect thing, there is a point at which you explain it in words, but then they have to do it. And then when they sort of get it through the language that you've given, you'll have to act it out. And when you act it out, you'll have to do it in a way that clearly demonstrates the principle that you are trying to get across to them. And if they don't get it, usually what you'll do is you'll give a few more words, right, to try and get more in their brain, but you also will repeat the stroke and say, this is the stroke. And you're like, okay, that's what I was doing. No, it's not. That's what you did. I know it looks a lot alike, but look again. This stroke, now look at my wrist. It's a little different. Did you get that? Okay, right there, I'm not using a lot of words. Mainly, I am capturing attention and pointing to something happening and then seeing if you're seeing it by asking you a critical question. If you don't, I'm like adjusting where your eyes should go. Look at the wrist. The wrist is not the same in both the strokes. Oh, okay, try it again. Better. But do you see how you changed the wrist? Yeah, you also hitched your shoulder. This, but I wasn't doing it. No, you were here. Go, give me a video. Where's the shoulder? Oh, you're right. Okay, so like, for me natively, the clearest thing to me to teach another person is to have a person who is properly motivated. They are ready to seek, they are ready to quasi-death, and now they're ready to have that quasi-death go right at them. All right, so then I start pointing it out, and I constellate, and then they get it, and then the quasi-death happens. The linguistics of a more kind of empirical educational model, that's not something that comes nearly as natural. But that's a different kind of clarity. All right. Another thing is the clarity of collection versus presentation. So as a tracker, my clarity is that I am making a collection and then I can bring people around the collection and show them what is what, and then I point on the map where those animals are. Okay, so that's a lot of clarity because I'm pointing out something that they didn't know was there, or if they did, they thought that animal was more like that, and I'm like, no, it's in these categories. And they're like, oh, is that over here in the map? No, it's over here. So the clarity is actually putting things on a map and correctly on the map, and then what that trajectory of movement means to the rest of the map pieces. Now, there's a lot more to it than that as far as breaking it down, understanding, like say Zavez and acting out. Coming to mind, Jarlene's singing. So you may be hearing that. She's kicking a button there, working on stuff for our move to Portland, which should happen a couple of months. So rock on. So enjoy the serenade. All right. What else? Maps versus words. So, for example, myself, the first clarity is putting something on the map, like seeing it and then putting the map and then adjusting it, where they put it here, like, oh, here. And you go, no, here. Showing that the valley is actually such kilometers over. Now, you could actually say what I said more cleanly, but that's after it's already known. First, I have to figure it out myself, so that's the clarity of figuring. A clarity of noodling around a problem and clearly weighing it until you get the answer. And that's a particular kind of Zai I have because I am driven to figure out these cases. And then clarity of what will it take to get your attention and have you look at what you need to look. Take that hit and then move in the right direction. So right here, all this I'm doing, the leaning in, the jutting, the change in my tone, the crinkle in my forehead, this is a motif that has happened throughout human history, pre-recorded, where Naiji are truthfully saying something they believe in and they've actually thought it through well and they're getting stronger. There's a way to it. And that tells other people like, oh, this sounds weird, but I think there might be something to it. That's the clarity. So for me, my primary one as far as people is actually getting you to realize it's a thing. And there's a whole set of personal behaviors that go with that, and you must clearly understand them and then clearly enact them. All right. What else? demon slaying. There's different kinds of demons. It kind of relates to that, but I'll mention a little specialization there as far as spirituality. Is that, for example, when Demas writes very well expressed things, which he does all the time, and he's very good at, it's breaking a kind of cloud in one's mind, a demon of ignorance. So actually, Naiji and Zaini share a bit of a shamanic vibe to the way they do things. And but for myself, that is more oriented towards taking off the things you don't see that are holding you back. Now, there will be things, and I can get into this if people need it, which is they're technically not getting it. But for my particular specialty, I'm more specialized at not intellectual matters, but more spiritual and personal matters that are inhibiting one from following the trail where they need to go. And so that clarity is this. Oh, I see it. I can clearly see it. And then I point it out. Do you see we did such and such? Yeah. That's different than the other day and the other day, even though it seems like the same activity. Does it seem like the same activity to you? Yes. It's not. It's not. No. This was different, and that made you react different. Do you see that person actually brought you something different to the table? Yeah. And you didn't realize it, but it actually upset you. And that's why you talked to the second person who came to the table in that charged up tone. Now, what I said right now, maybe that doesn't make the best paragraph. That is absolutely clear. That is stunningly, staggeringly, most people can't hack it kind of clarity of a certain variety. The variety I specialize in. So, what else? Then there's clarity versus celerity, speed of thinking and acting. So, with first wave versus second wave is trying to, it recognizes there's a blueprint, and it's trying to make the blueprint more understandable to more people, more applicable to more systems. And so it has a kind of clarity that allows first wave stuff to expand out more and to have greater reach in the dynamics that are going on, and also the towers. It can handle more than just those first raw ideas. The clarity of first wave, all four of them, the Nai source mojos and the Ni source mojos, it has to do with who sees the pattern first. So my specialty of clarity, if you would really make it real kind of like a mathematical thing, all four of the Nez alpha mojos, they have it to where they're trying to get a pattern first. And the clarity is, am I seeing this? That's a thing. Initial creation or initial discovery. What are the clear steps to solving the case? Not breaking the case down to a class after the case is closed, which is important. And you need to do that. You take famous cases that were cracked, and then you have new students actually work those cases, walk through the steps of it, and then have it really broken down. But the people who actually crack the first case, they're using a different kind of clarity criteria, which is there's these elusive threads, and you have to think, I think I'm seeing it, I'm thinking not. It's a very fuzzy kind of clarity. But as a Nez Alpha, I can tell you, it's very important to see the fuzzy data as clear as possible. That may not seem clear to other people, or like second wave or beyond. That's very clear. I have the greatest clarity of Naiji doing Naiji stuff, trying to understand the human condition. That's fuzzy data, though. Fuzzy data is probably never going to have quite the clarity that you would like, because it's not words, it's not mathematical formulas. But that doesn't make one better than the other. You need all of it, including wave 3 and wave 4. You need the values-based perceivers and the logic-based perceivers and the discerners and so forth, and the whole thing in order to shepherd what's going on. Let's see. Anything else? Yeah, on that is that the clarity that I am focused on is people not falling off the trail. So there is understanding everything that's going on in, for example, a certain area, terrain. And language is very good for that. Demas is very good for that. Mitchell's also strong in that, breaking down what terrain you're seeing, what it means, and so forth. But That's different than the initial being guided through it and actually being shown what's important and what is not important and what is key to focus on and what is key to ignore as a distraction. So that's clarity of saying it's known and then making sure other people see that it is a thing. Proof of concept. Yeah, understanding something in a more technical sense, you fully get the nuts and bolts and the logistics and the mechanics of it is different than, that's a thing, and that's why it's influencing that. And so basically clarity of the first time. But there's several first times. If you do Mojo reading, you realize there's lots of quasi-deaths you have to have, and each one of those is its own first thing. A good example of that is take Picasso. Naiji is a genius beyond what other people in the world were doing in general, and even in the art community, which was his little particular niche in the world of specialty abilities. He was way beyond anyone else. Okay. Or there are very few who were at his level. All right, so for example, one thing that he did is at one point, one of his more famous paintings, he did 800 drafts, light sketches, and each one of those sketches don't look that dialed in. So as far as clarity, it wasn't that clear because it wasn't that clearly rendered in a second wave or beyond terms. But he's actually trying to teach himself. He's seeing something and he thinks he's seeing it and he's trying to sketch it like, is that what I'm seeing? And then most artists couldn't get him. He was actually controversial until he became big, but there was a few people that could get it. They saw the trail he's going on, and so when he's pointing out these sketches, they're realizing, oh, yeah, I see it. But it's still not even what you would call like blueprint, second wave. It's not a fully rendered thing at all. 800 drafts before going to the rendered one. Now, who has more clarity on that than Picasso? No one. Was it the way that the art world was going to be going and is going to influence everyone? Everyone's still being influenced by it. Now all artists around the world are still being influenced by that. No, that is the clarity that he had. And then he was able to get a few people that he wanted to learn from, jam from, whatever, to understand what he was going for. So he was clearly able to get them to grasp his purpose, what the goal is, and then to show that draft is closer. It is clearly closer. Or it's clearly not, shit, burn it, right, throw it off, make me mad. But each draft that's closer, it is clearer. And it is a kind of clarity that no one else has. Now, if you asked Picasso to explain his paintings, he would not do it. He would be very short and kind of like, this isn't, I'm here to break your mind of what you think art is. I'm not here to like write a textbook. I know I'm doing a pretty good job of that, but that's actually not my initial thing of what I want to be doing or what motivates me or feel strongest. And I feel strongest, but actually like, new art. In this case, it's human qualia, the greatest art there is. But if you would ask him, he couldn't explain it very well and couldn't and wouldn't. It's a combination of both. That's not his primary form of clarity, and he's not inclined to do it. For myself, I can explain things, but I get bored breaking it down like that. I would prefer to have you try and do what I do and then explain to you where you're missing and you do better. And then I would prefer for me to do another draft of my own best effort and then point out the differences between my better draft and my older draft. So my articulation is more a creative one of myself or observing your creative effort or your first consciousness effort and then making adjustments. Clearly seeing how it works, clearly seeing how it works for me, clearly seeing how it's working for you. And clearly getting you to understand, oh, that's why you need to move here. But there are many people who could probably articulate Picasso's work way better than Picasso. In fact, that kind of clarity would get in the way. Being an IG, I can tell you, I can't bring that kind of clarity in the beginning of my actual specialty amongst the human species. It would throw me off the trail. To even ask for it would be incorrect at that phase, because in the discovery phase, clarity is done, it's perceiving. Wave one are all perceivers. So the first clarity is observational in the world or observational in your own mind's eye of something. And then trying to point to dots in the world that constellate what you're talking about. All right. I guess that's basically it. But I'll just add in at the tail end of it here that this applies to all admirable qualities. With Xi, for example, it does fit the linguistical clarity a lot of people associate with the term clarity, and also a deductive reasoning in one's mind kind of clarity as well, weighing of things in fine gradients. And that's why the word clarity is associated with Xi and Xi mojos, for example, and mojos that have strong Xi. So I don't find it offensive at all. It makes sense, and that is the most common understanding of that, and we ourselves even use it in the power flows of Xi. But in reality, Xi does not own code of conduct. Really, everything has a code of conduct. V has a code of conduct. I mean, if you get metaphorical with it and abstract with it, actually there's a clarity to all the powers and mojos. There's a commitment, there's a ferocity, all these words you could say, there's a version of that. And then the question is, what is it that person, they are momentum and modulation powers they have as gifts, and what feats, what heroic feats are they attempting to do, and then how clearly are they understanding that, how clearly are they walking it out, and how clearly are they connecting to people who can get it. Like for myself, the main clarity I found is not in getting people to get it, although it's very important, and I'm so glad we have people on the team who are strong at that. But clarity of wake the fuck up. Clarity of, do you think this, and this? Yeah, no. Do you see that, and that? Yeah. Do you see that, and that? Yeah. Put them together. They don't go together. Exactly. Now that was the most complicated speech, but that is genius at certain things, mega genius in my case, of actually giving someone clarity of, is your brain doing that? Yeah, is your brain doing that? Put them together, doesn't work. No shit, why didn't you know that? That's a very clear, concise way to untangle their wires in their head. But that's different than once you've untangled wires, getting those wires to understand a theoretical, technical concept or, discipline. All right, so I hope that was helpful, and I think it's just good in general because I don't want there to be any feelings of unnecessary rivalry between mojo designs and things like that. It's not necessary. In fact, that's a general theme of suckiness in the world historically and today, is men versus women rivalries, whites versus blacks rivalries, rivalries between directives and adaptives, rivalries between logic-based and values-based. And if you can actually see what's going on, nature was way woke on that shit before us. So that's the thing to kind of, I really want to bring home, is that there's enough heroic glory and awesomeness for everyone. In fact, there is always going to be more that we could be doing that we're not. So there's no shortage of ways to actually give oneself, an honorable showing on the field of heroic effort. And I want Podlair to really exude that, and we meet other people, that we're not trying to get into a shine battle with another person. We're trying to get everyone to shine more. And that takes a certain kind of mindset, and one must be clear about that. All right, have a great day, and I'll talk to you later.